Thank you, Pak Budiarsa. This brings us to the question and answer segment of our section. Since I asked you to use the new technology, I feel duty bound to ask the highest voted on, the one with the highest votes, question from the floor that came in here. It goes as follows. Can developing cities in Southeast Asia follow Singapore's comprehensive planning model? Or are their needs so different that they require a different planning paradigm, which relies less on government and more on the people? Now, when I say less on government and more on the people, I'm not sure exactly what was intended, but I can think two ways of interpreting people. People, of course, could be at a very local level, could also refer to the private sector. And the private sector, I think here is represented by Mr. Budiarsa, whom I know has not only done development, but has, in his presentation, talked a lot around town planning to actually embrace more than just a single unitary kind of development, but actually looking at the whole area and the whole community. However, the question I think I would like to pose not only to Pak Budiarsa as to his experience in this, but also perhaps to the three representing Iskandar, Cambodia and Vietnam, as to how receptive would your governments be to a broader role, a wider role for the private sector in areas such as town planning. And perhaps I would start by asking Joeman.
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Yes, to me, it's a really good idea. The way I approached, and this is my personal view, but I think it reflects on the way we run it's kind of Malaysia too, is working together with the industry, with all the players, with investors. We want them to be part and parcel, if you like, of the process of how we run or develop Iskandar Malaysia. It cannot be the old paradigm, you call it, if you like, where everything is dictated, but in the sense of the government saying, you have to go there, you have to go there, you have to do this. We have to be flexible. The way things are run these days, I'm a town planner by training, is the approach in terms of how we're going to zone areas. It has to be flexible, and it has to be on the side of telling the investor, we can work a way around this. It doesn't have to be that you go to an area and say, okay, we're going to destroy your mangroves or your beautiful Ramsar sites, which we have 3 in Iskandar Malaysia. What we're saying is, let's go to a place where you can work together with other industries, whether it's agglomeration or otherwise, we can work together. And I think the way I would run things is ensuring that we sit down with investors, with developers, and talk together. It has to be worked both ways, by the way. It cannot be that the developers come in and said, I got billions of money. I want to just come here, invest, and run this part of my patch, if you like. It has to be run together concurrently in the sense of, if you're coming in, you have to be a good investor and a responsible investor, citizen in that sense. So we are saying, if you want to come to Iskandar Malaysia, come with good intention, come with a clean intention. So in the same way, the way we run things is come together and speak to us first before you do anything else. We can give you the right opportunity, the right directions, and it can be a plus to both sides. That's the way I would see it.
Thanks, Boyd. Perhaps Mr. Cuong, you could share with us how in Ho Chi Minh City you might look at using the private sector for developing broader communities.
Nowadays in Ho Chi Minh City, we have many challenges. Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, biggest city in Vietnam. So many challenges. Example, population rising, and like up capital, and private vehicle is rising very fast. So now we have to do a lot, but anything to do. Today in Ho Chi Minh City, every year we need $3 billion for investing urban infrastructure, but we only see 1/3. Many projects can cooperate, can organize and work together. In the future, we think private sector is very important, very necessary. So we will formulation as our urban finance policy to ties to efficiency, use capital resources from for infrastructure development, especially local and foreign investor to invest in infrastructure in Ho Chi Minh City. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kong. And Dr. Khemro, perhaps you could share with us how you see the role of people in the private sector.
Thank you again, Mr. Chair. As I share with you in our Excellency Minister's speech, is that the role of private sector in the urban development in Cambodia is very crucial. The government cherishes this role, and however, in regard to your early point that whether city in Cambodia should follow the Singapore model, I think to be honest with you, Singapore is a country that has been regarded as an idol for Cambodian general and also the decision maker. However, I think we should not try to copy the role, but at least we learn, because I think even we would like to copy the role of Singapore. We have different characteristics. For example, we in regard to number of population versus the land availability, financial and human resource capacity of Singapore and Cambodia. But I think we have learned, we should learn, and we can learn from Singapore in regard to legal and regulatory framework, and especially the effectiveness of how Singaporean government have carried out the law and enforcement. And again, academically, there is no what you call optimization of the city. So we should learn from Singapore, and maybe we localize what we can, and then apply it into the practice. So, in summary, the role of private sector, yes, we have learned from Singapore, and it has been the backbone of the Singapore economy. So that's why the royal government of Cambodia has cherished this role of private sector. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Budiarsa, maybe you could share with us, in your experience, what has worked and what has not worked. What are the important considerations in a sort of public inviting the private sector in to do more of the town planning function?
I think the essence of our development actually is participating in the development of a planned city master plan by the government. It's true that in some cases, when we have identified an area to be developed, that the government are not ready with the master plan, but at least they have the regional plan, not to the detail of master plan. Then we can contribute to the government in providing the master plan itself. I think we as a private sector, we always look at opportunities. You ask whether we should copy Singapore. It's true, I agree with Mr. Kang. We would like to, but the point is that the stage of the development, the stage of the environment is not the same. I also could share when we went to Hanoi. At that time also we are the first large-scale development that the government grant us the license. The same like when we went to Phnom Penh in Cambodia. But since we have the right concept that accepted by the government, so the government responds positively. So I think we as a private sector, we do like to participate in filling the gap of the development of the city. It's not that we would like just to move forward on our own, but we are with the government on the planning issue itself.
Thank you, Mr. Budiarsa. I have a number 2 here, but before that, perhaps I can check from the floor whether there are any burning questions which members of the floor would like to put. There are 2 microphones. If you would like, please come up. Yes, the gentleman there. Please identify yourself and put your question in succinct, clear way.
My name is Robin Rajak. I'm with the World Bank in Washington. I just wanted to thank all the presenters. I just wondered if any of them could identify anything that has been done on a systematic scale to improve the efficiency of land markets and the transparency of land markets, so that all of these wonderful investments that we're talking about redound to the benefit of not just increased land values and captured by a relatively small number of people, but they, yes, bring value to the cities, but at the same time, land markets operate in a way so that the population that is rapidly growing in these cities are able to access these lands. Is there anything that's been done systematically, either the expansion of infrastructure systematically or accessibility of land information, land values, land ownership, anything on that scale? Thank you.
Okay, if I can try to maybe just rephrase some of your questions, just so that our panel have a chance to understand. I think the question is about what are the measures that would work to help to channel the investment such that the benefit from the investment is not just from the immediate recipients, but actually spreads to the wider community, in particular ensuring that the less well-off in the community are not disadvantaged, but actually that the same rising tide lifts all ships in the bay. This is actually, in a sense, very close to the second question that came from the floor, which is that in Professor Komara's presentation, the rate of urbanization did not bring commensurate GDP growth. So in a way, it's also what sort of recommendations would ensure that as we embark on channeling this drive into urbanization, we actually still have the benefits for the people. If I could maybe ask Professor Komara first, from an academic point of view, how do you attribute this?
Thank you, Mr. Lee. Well, I think the Indonesian experience for the last 10 years, why we didn't get the kind of a reap like neighboring countries, India, China, 1% of urbanizations, capture increasing in GDP per capita is quite high. 10% in Vietnam, 8%, 6% in India and China, and 8% in Thailand. I think for us, Indonesia there are some explanation on that. Being archipelagic countries is difficult in terms of connectivity among a center of growth to the other center of growth in archipelagic country like Indonesia. The second one is also related to some extent with the questions raised before, land market issues. We are really a big problem. Budiarsa can tell us a lot in practical way. Land administrations land use planning to some extent is quote unquote in a mess in Indonesia. That's because of governance issues. So sometimes land acquisition for private sector takes time, sometimes uncertainty, going nowhere. So that's why a lot of infrastructure projects delay. So that's some reason on that. The other one is I already mentioned on capacity, especially municipal government or metropolitan managers with the growing influx of people coming into the cities. Sometimes even the innovative thinking, innovative solution is needed actually. But say for example like Jakarta, yes, we add some more road, but the transportation management is not, is getting better. Transportation management, for example, as public mass transport is lag behind, and so on and so on. So metropolitan management, to some extent, is a big problem with us. Land market already. So when I was talking about people-to-people connectivity, physical connectivity, for people in the government, sometimes they do have institutional connectivity. For private sector, in Indonesia is very, very, sometimes not like Iskandar case, more on the, what should I say, one stop service, kind of that. We in Indonesia is still hurdle on these issues. Back to on the role of private sector, I think unavoidable nowadays is the government should hand in hand with private sector or even with the grassroots. And in any policy should have a kind of close consultation with private sector. Well, even some innovative cities or urban development sometimes initiated by the private sector. And also from the grassroots for pedestrian, for example, or green or public space. Sometimes we in the civil society push government to, more friendly to, pedestrian, green activities, and so on and so on. So back to Indonesian case, probably it's a bit different with Singapore, just one state city. We with 40 provinces and around 400 sub-districts and almost 100 municipalities. Sometimes decision-making process is a bit messy, but it doesn't mean that we Indonesian people would like to stay put. But of course, looking at neighboring countries, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, wow, they already in India and China. So we are hammering ourselves actually in this case. Thank you, Pak.
Thank you. Would any of the other areas would like to comment on the question as to how do we ensure we get the most for the people from urbanization?
If allow, I may share the Cambodian experience. As you can see that Cambodia has gone through this many past history, from a complete state ownership market economy to planned economy, and now we are moving in the process of our travel to the liberal market economy. And we could share with you that the royal government of Cambodia, we have 2 points that we look forward is that our Prime Minister used to say in the public that only reform, then we can survive in the long term. So the reform land reform is the basic reform that we should move forward. And you also experience that Cambodia at the moment is in the process of what we call decentralization and deconcentration policy, where we delegate decision-making power to the local government as well as to the grassroots population. And then I also would like to share with you that the reason why my senior minister canceled this trip, because he has a personal instruction from Excellency the Prime Minister to implement we call a country-wide land reform program for the poor, because we have given large land for economic concession, and there have some problem arise from this concession. So now the Prime Minister have decided that for within a period of 6 months, Cambodia have to implement land reform, that local community that involved in the disputed economic concession shall be given the ownership. That is why, because why? Because in our long-term development, we see small, medium, and large entrepreneurship should be the direction that Cambodia should move forward. So this is how we see that in order to benefit to the local community, a reform program should be initiated, and that's what we are doing now. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Unless any of the other panelists would like to say anything, I would like to respect your time. I understand we are already 15 minutes over time. Let me just to sum up, say that today I think we've heard first a run-through of the trends in Southeast Asia. We've had examples from Malaysia, Cambodia, and Vietnam. And we've also had a perspective from a private developer, which is, I think, involved not just development, but also planning. I want to thank our panelists for their contribution and the audience for your participation. Before we break, can I just make a plug for an event later today? If you're here, I guess you're interested in urbanization in Southeast Asia. There is a launch of a book, Urbanization in Southeast Asia, Issues and Impacts. This book is published by the Center for Livable Cities and the ASEAN Studies Center at the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies. This is a joint work. It has many contributors. It is published by the Institute of Southeast Asian Studies. The launch is at 1:30 in room 4713, which is the junior ballroom on level 4, room 4713. And I understand that the book is available there at a discount. So if you're interested, please come. Thank you all very much. Thank you.